You're telling me these humans, they evolved on a planet with 70% surface coverage of a highly corrosive universal solvent? Captain Carrick's clicked his mandibles in disbelief, all four eyes widening as he stared at the holographic display. Actually, sir, Lieutenant Vezina adjusted her translation implant nervously. That's not even the concerning part. The bridge of the Galactic Council exploration vessel Eternal Curiosity had fallen unusually quiet. Even the normally chatty maintenance drones seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, their usual whirring reduced to an anxious hum. KRX, pride of the Zexry Space Force and self-proclaimed only Deathworlder crazy enough to make captain, leaned forward in his command chair. The reinforced titanium alloy creaked under his considerable weight, a necessity for someone evolved on a 2.1G world. Define not even the concerning part, he said slowly. Vezina pulled up another hologram, this one showing atmospheric composition readings. Their atmosphere is approximately 21% pure oxygen. What? KRX actually fell out of his chair, his exoskeleton clattering against the deck. That's impossible. The combustion risk alone. Oh, it gets better, Vezina continued, warming to her subject with the enthusiasm only a xenobiologist could muster for potentially lethal planetary conditions. They evolved in an environment with regular electrical atmospheric discharges, seasonal megastorms, active plate tectonics, and periodic ice ages. Their planet hosts over 500 species of obligate predators weighing over 50 kilograms, and that's just counting the current surviving ones. KRX hauled himself back into his chair, mandibles twitching. And they survived this? How intelligent are we talking about here? They've achieved faster-than-light travel. By the first egg, KRX whispered. How did we miss them until now? Well, Vezina brought up yet another hologram, this one showing a spiral arm of the galaxy with a small region highlighted in red. They're from what we designated as the Dead Zone. That region we assumed was uninhabitable due to the density of Class 4 through 9 death worlds. You mean to tell me, KRX said slowly, that we found intelligent life in the sector we marked Here Be Dragons on our star charts? Technically, sir, I believe the official designation was navigation hazard, extreme environmental conditions, but yes, and humans, well, they don't just survive there, they thrive. The bridge fell silent again as the implications sank in. The Zexry had always prided themselves on being the galaxy's premier deathworlders. Their homeworld, with its crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere, had produced a species of hardy warriors that other races regarded with a mixture of fear and respect. But this was something else entirely. Pull up their first contact protocols, KRX ordered, trying to maintain some semblance of professional detachment. Let's see how they handle diplomatic. Sir! The sensor operator's voice crackled with alarm. Unidentified vessel just dropped out of FTL. It's broadcasting on all frequencies? A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in surprisingly good galactic standard. Attention, alien vessel. This is the human merchant ship. Bob's your uncle. We noticed you scanning our colony and thought we'd pop by to say hello. Also, we brought snacks. Fair warning, they're a bit spicy. KRX's mandibles worked silently for a moment before he found his voice. Did they just casual FTL jump next to us to offer us food? Affirmative, sir. They're also requesting permission to dock. They say, and I quote, "We've got some great stories about this one time we accidentally terraformed a moon by spilling coffee, and we'd love to swap tales over dinner." KRX started laughing. He couldn't help it. After 3 decades of space exploration, he'd thought he'd seen everything. But this was new. Vezina, what's your professional opinion? As our xenobiologist, should we accept their invitation? Vezina was already reviewing the preliminary scans of the human vessel. Sir, their ship's life support is maintaining Earth-standard conditions. That means their snacks probably evolved in an environment that would kill most species in the galaxy. Their idea of a bit spicy might be classified as a chemical weapon by Galactic Council standards. Perfect! KRX clapped his primary hands together. Open a channel. I want to meet these humans. What followed was arguably the most interesting first contact in Galactic Council history. The humans, as it turned out, were exactly as crazy as their planetary conditions suggested, and then some. The human captain, one Sarah Chen, strode onto the Eternal Curiosity, with the casual confidence of someone who had evolved on a planet where death by lightning was a common enough occurrence to have its own insurance category. She was carrying what she called a picnic basket and wearing what she described as casual Friday attire. "Hope you don't mind," she said, setting down the basket. "But we brought a variety of options. Never know what other species can safely eat, you know? Though I've got to say, you folks look pretty sturdy. Deathworlders, right?" KRX puffed up with pride. "Indeed, we evolved on 2.1G planet with a corrosive atmosphere?" Sarah grinned. "Nice! We've got a colony on a planet like that. Great for extreme sports tourism." KRX's mandibles dropped. "You colonize worlds like ours? For fun?" "Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to do something on your vacation, right? Can't spend all your time on those boring paradise worlds. No offense to the species that live there, but where's the excitement in perfect weather and no predators?" The next few hours were a crash course in human insanity. Sarah and her crew shared stories that made KRX's exoskeleton crawl, tales of humans deliberately jumping out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment, diving into the corrosive water that covered their planet to see what's down there, and intentionally climbing frozen mountains because they're there. But it was the food that really drove home just how different humans were. Sarah had thoughtfully brought environmental suits for the Eternal Curiosities crew, explaining that some of the spices might be a bit much for unprotected respiratory systems. She wasn't wrong. KRX watched in horror as Sarah casually bit into something she called a ghost pepper, while explaining that it wasn't even close to the hottest thing humans ate for fun. "Wait," Vizina interrupted, her scientific curiosity overriding her survival instinct. "You're saying you deliberately cultivated plants that produce chemical irritants to make your food more interesting?" "Oh yeah," Sarah beamed. "We've got this great restaurant back on Earth that makes you sign a waiver before they'll serve you their special sauce. It's fantastic." The conversation eventually turned to military matters, as conversations between spacefaring species often do. KRX was proud of the Zexri combat record. They were, after all, the Galactic Council's go-to species for handling hostile environments and dangerous missions. "So," he said, trying to steer the conversation back to familiar ground, "I assume your species handles most of your civilization's high-risk military operations?" Sarah looked confused. "What? No, we're mostly merchants and explorers. Our military's pretty small, actually. We figured out pretty early that trading is more fun than fighting." "But with your environmental tolerances, your physical capabilities?" KRX sputtered. "Oh, that!" Sarah laughed. "Yeah, we're pretty tough, I guess. But we learned that you can get way more cool stuff by making friends and trading fairly than by trying to take it by force. Plus, you know, friends let you try their weird alien food." It was at that moment that KRX had an epiphany. The Zexri had always seen their Deathworld origins as a source of martial pride, a reason to stand apart from the softer species of the galaxy. But humans had taken their remarkable durability and turned it into a source of connection, an opportunity to go places and meet people that others couldn't. "Sarah," KRX said slowly, "I believe this could be the beginning of a very interesting relationship between our species." "Great," Sarah grinned. "Want to try some of this hot sauce? I promise it's only rated as a Class 3 chemical irritant by Galactic Council standards." And that's how the galaxy's premier warrior race learned that there was more than one way to be a Deathworlder. The Zexri might have evolved to survive harsh conditions, but humans had evolved to turn those conditions into opportunities for fun, profit, and friendship. In the years that followed, human influence spread through the galaxy, not through force of arms, but through an infectious combination of curiosity, hospitality, and what they called extreme tourism. They established colonies on worlds other species considered uninhabitable, set up trading posts in the most unlikely places, and generally treated the galaxy's most dangerous environments as their personal playground. The Galactic Council eventually had to create an entirely new classification system for planetary hazards, because humans kept colonizing worlds that were supposedly impossible to live on. They also had to revise their first contact protocols to include a section specifically about human food, with appropriate warning labels and liability waivers. KRX went on to become the Galactic Council's chief liaison to human space, a position that required him to sample a lot of human cuisine. He developed quite a taste for something called extra spicy chicken wings, though he never quite worked up the courage to try the sauce that required a waiver. As for Sarah Chen, she parlayed her first contact experience into a successful chain of extreme environment restaurants that catered to both humans and other Deathworlders. Her flagship establishment, located on Earth in a place called Texas, became famous for its supernova challenge, a dish so spicy that it had to be prepared in a sealed clean room by staff in hazmat suits. The rest of the galaxy watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as humans continued to treat the most dangerous environments in known space as tourist destinations. They set up ski resorts on ice worlds, deep-sea hotels in ammonia oceans, and extreme hiking trails on planets with active volcanic regions. But perhaps the most telling sign of humanity's unique approach to the galaxy came in the form of a small addition to their standard ship's greeting. Where most species broadcast their credentials and peaceful intentions, human vessels added a simple postscript. Greetings from Earth. We come in peace, bearing snacks. Environmental suits recommended. In the end, it turned out that being a Death Worlder wasn't about being the toughest or the strongest. It was about how you chose to use your abilities. And humans, in their peculiar wisdom, had chosen to use their remarkable durability to make friends, share meals, and turn the most hostile environments in the galaxy into vacation spots. The Zexri eventually adapted their own approach, opening a series of high-gravity fitness centers that became popular with humans looking for an extra challenge. Because if you can't beat them, and you definitely can't out-eat them, you might as well join them. And somewhere in the galaxy, right now, there's probably a human asking an alien if they'd like to try something called a Carolina Reaper, while a Zexri environmental safety officer frantically waves warning flags in the background. With all due respect, Captain Carix, Ambassador Lazin's hologram flickered with barely contained agitation. You can't be serious about this cultural exchange program. KRX, now sporting several human merit badges for completing various extreme sports challenges, clicked his mandibles in amusement. I assure you, Ambassador, I'm perfectly serious. The humans have already agreed. But a joint academy? Training both species young together? Have you seen their educational methods? I have, KRX replied, absent-mindedly adjusting the I survived human hot sauce pin on his ceremonial armor. That's precisely why I proposed it. The ambassador's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme distress among the Zexri. They teach their children survival skills by abandoning them in wilderness areas. They call it summer camp. Actually, a cheerful voice interrupted. That's just the basic course. Wait until you hear about our advanced wilderness leadership program. Sarah Chen, now sporting the impressive title of Human Galactic Relations Director and owner of the increasingly infamous restaurant chain Death by Dining, stepped into view. She was wearing what humans called a Hawaiian shirt, decorated with patterns of Earth's most dangerous predators. Sarah! Carrick's mandibles spread in what had become his approximation of a human smile. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to the ambassador about our new joint venture. Oh, you mean the Extreme Exchange Program? Sarah grinned. We've already got over 1,000 applications from human teenagers. They're super excited about learning high-gravity combat techniques from the Zexri. The ambassador's exoskeleton actually creaked from tension. And how many Zexri applications have we received? 327 so far, KRX reported proudly. Mostly from young ones who've been watching human extreme sports broadcasts. We're calling it Death World Academy, Sarah added helpfully, though legal made us add safety first to the official title. What followed was perhaps the most interesting educational experiment in galactic history. The first class of the Joint Death World Species Safety First Academy, JDSSFA, or Death School, as the students immediately dubbed it, opened 6 standard months later on a specially chosen planet that both species found pleasantly challenging. The facility itself was a marvel of cross-species engineering. One wing maintained Earth-standard conditions, while another replicated the crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere of the Zexri homeworld. The common areas existed in a carefully maintained middle ground that both species found uncomfortably exciting. Welcome to orientation! Sarah stood before the assembled students, a mix of human teenagers practically vibrating with excitement and young Zexri trying very hard to maintain their species' traditional dignified bearing. Before we begin, please make sure you've signed all 14 pages of liability waivers. And yes, the section about voluntary exposure to human cooking is mandatory. KRX, standing beside her as co-administrator, added, Remember, the goal here is not just survival, but understanding. Each species has something to teach the other. The first few weeks were interesting. The human students took to high-gravity training with characteristic enthusiasm, turning what was supposed to be a grueling endurance exercise into something they called extreme parkour. The Zexri instructors watched in horror as their carefully designed obstacle course became a playground for backflipping teenagers in G-suits. Meanwhile, the young Zexri discovered something their species had never considered. Fun could be a powerful training motivator. Their natural durability, combined with human creativity, led to the invention of several new sports that would later be banned in 3 sectors of the galaxy. But it was in the classroom that the most surprising developments occurred. So, Jennifer Martinez, a 16-year-old from Earth, raised her hand during xenobiology class. "You're saying that most species consider both our worlds completely uninhabitable?" "Correct," the instructor, Dr. Vezana, who had eagerly transferred from the Eternal Curiosity to study this unprecedented experiment, confirmed. The combination of environmental hazards on either Earth or Zexri Prime would be lethal to approximately 98% of known sapient species. "Cool." Jennifer turned to her Zexri lab partner, Katil. "Want to help me with my science project? I've got this idea for an extreme environment cooking show." Katil, who had already developed a concerning addiction to human energy drinks, clicked enthusiastically. "Only if you'll help me test my theory about using your Earth bungee jumping techniques in our gravity." Dr. Vizina made a note to update the liability waivers. Again, the Academy's first major crisis came during what humans called Parents' Weekend. The facility's kitchens, attempting to cater to both species' tastes, accidentally cross-contaminated a Zexri protein dish with human hot sauce. The resulting chemical reaction melted 3 tables and created a new compound that was immediately classified as a controlled substance by the Galactic Council. The human parents thought it was hilarious. The Zexri parents were impressively stoic about the whole thing, though several were seen secretly sampling the remains of the contaminated dish when they thought no one was looking. But the real breakthrough came during the end-of-term projects. Cottle and Jennifer's presentation, titled Extreme Environment Fusion Cuisine, a study in cross-species gastrochemical reactions, won not only top honors, but also immediate attention from both military research departments. Their demonstration of how to safely combine Zexri mineral supplements with human spices created what they called super hot sauce, a condiment that technically qualified as a terraforming agent. Other notable projects included a modified high-gravity skateboard, later patented and mass-produced, a universal environmental suit that could handle both Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere and Zexri Prime's caustic conditions, a new extreme sport called gravitational chess that somehow combined strategic thinking with free-fall combat, a cooking method that used Earth's lightning strikes to prepare traditional Zexri dishes. The Academy's success led to some unexpected diplomatic developments. Other species, watching from a safe distance, began to realize that perhaps they had been too quick to write off the deadly sectors of the galaxy. If humans and Zexri could not only survive but actively enjoy such conditions, maybe there was something to learn from their approach. The Galactic Council, faced with the undeniable success of the program, and only 3 minor explosions, reluctantly approved funding for an expanded exchange initiative. They did, however, insist on maintaining a minimum safe distance for observation. Sarah Chen, reviewing the first year's results, couldn't stop grinning. "See? I told you it would work. Nothing brings people together like shared danger and good food." KRX, who had finally worked up the courage to try the legendary waiver requiring hot sauce, and only spent 3 days in medical recovery, nodded. "Indeed, though perhaps we should reconsider allowing the students to name their own training exercises. I'm still not sure yeet or be yeeted properly conveys the gravitational physics involved." The Academy's motto, suggested by the first graduating class and approved despite the administration's better judgment, said it all. "What doesn't kill you makes you hungrier." And somewhere in the galaxy, a new generation of humans and Zexri are discovering that the most dangerous thing about being a Death Worlder isn't the environment. It's the ideas you get when you meet someone else who thinks your deadly homeworld sounds like a fun place to visit. The second year's applications doubled. The liability waiver grew to 20 pages, and the galaxy watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as 2 species of Death Worlders learned that education was a lot more interesting when there was a chance of explosions. As Sarah likes to say, in space, no one can hear you scheme, but they can definitely hear the boom when your chemistry project gets a little too creative. "This is absolutely unprecedented," the Galactic Council Health and Safety Inspector declared, his protective suit whirring as its filters worked overtime. "I'm looking at what appears to be a voluntary vacation destination on a Class 9 Death World." "Welcome to Extreme Horizons Resort and Spa," Sarah Chen beamed. now sporting both her restaurant chain owner credentials and her newly minted title of Chief Experience Officer at the galaxy's first cross-species extreme tourism company. Would you like to try our signature acid rain mud bath? It's very exfoliating. The inspector's environmental suit gave a concerned beep as it detected yet another potentially lethal environmental hazard. Ms. Chen, there are active volcanoes within viewing distance of the main lodge. Oh yes, Carex chimed in, his exoskeleton gleaming with a fresh coating of protective resin. That's why we chose this location. The lava flows provide excellent ambient heating for our spa treatments, and the volcanic lightning makes for spectacular evening entertainment. The inspector scrolled through his datapad with increasing distress. Your activities list includes anti-gravity bungee jumping into active geysers. Don't worry, Sarah reassured him. We have a comprehensive waiver system, and the rescue drones are top of the line. They were designed by our first graduating class at the academy. Indeed, the resort was the latest joint venture between humanity and the Zexri, staffed largely by graduates of the now famous Death School. The facility itself was a testament to what happened when you combined human hospitality concepts with Zexri engineering. The main lodge, a stunning piece of architecture that somehow managed to look both inviting and like it could withstand a direct meteor strike, housed 3 different atmospheric zones. The human section maintained Earth-standard conditions, complete with what they called a weather room that simulated various Earth natural disasters for homesick guests. The Zexri wing recreated their homeworld's crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere, featuring what they marketed as relaxing acid pools. But it was the common area that really showcased the insanity of the venture. Designed to be challenging yet survivable for both species, it had quickly become the galaxy's hottest meeting spot for thrill-seeking diplomats. And here's our premier restaurant. Sarah gestured proudly to a reinforced structure with hazard warnings in 12 languages. The last resort, where every meal is an adventure. The restaurant had already gained notoriety throughout the galaxy. Its head chef, none other than Jennifer Martinez, the former Death School student who had invented super hot sauce, had created a menu that required graduated tolerance testing before guests could advance to the higher tiers. We've had to update our insurance policy 6 times this month alone, Carex noted proudly. Apparently, we're now classified as our own category of risk. The inspector watched in horror as a group of human tourists cheerfully headed towards something called the lightning surfing experience, while a family of Zexri youth eagerly signed up for Extreme Earth Sports Hurricane Edition. But why? He finally managed to ask. Well, Sarah explained, helping a Zexri guest adjust their I Survived Earth gravity anti-crush suit. We realized something important during our educational exchange program. Both our species evolved to not just survive extreme conditions, but to adapt and thrive in them. So why not share that perspective with the rest of the galaxy? KRX nodded, his mandibles clicking in amusement, as he watched a mixed group of humans and Zexri playing something they called volcanic volleyball. Besides, he added, you haven't lived until you've tried deep-sea fishing in a methane ocean. The catch may be toxic to most species, but the views are spectacular. The resort's success spawned a whole new industry. Soon, Extreme Horizons locations were popping up on death worlds throughout the galaxy. Each resort specialized in showcasing the unique hazards of its location, turning what other species considered lethal environmental conditions into tourist attractions. Popular packages included the Lightning Strike Golf Challenge on Electric Storm Prime, Zero-G Wrestling in the crushing gravity wells of Neutron Beach Resort, Acid Rain Rafting Adventures in the caustic rivers of Mordant 6, Sandstorm Surfing on the glass deserts of Silica Major. But perhaps the most surprising development came from the resort's unexpected role in galactic diplomacy. It turned out that something about facing potential death by entertainment made traditional diplomatic tensions seem rather trivial. It's hard to maintain a species rivalry, Sarah often observed, when you're both trying to survive the ultimate death world decathlon. The resort's conference center, built to withstand everything from meteor strikes to quantum fluctuations, became a popular location for difficult diplomatic negotiations. More than one intergalactic treaty was signed in the aftermath of what became known as survival bonding sessions. The inspector's final report to the Galactic Council was succinct. While I cannot in good conscience approve of any of this, I must admit that the safety protocols are impressively thorough, if only because both humans and Zexri seem to enjoy surviving increasingly improbable situations. He added a personal note. Also, the gift shop's selection of I cheated death on my vacation merchandise is surprisingly extensive. The resort's success led to yet another collaborative venture. Sarah and KRX announced the creation of Death World Adventures, an educational tourism company specializing in what they called survival tourism experiences. Think of it as a gap year program, Sarah explained to a horrified panel of galactic education officials, but with more lava. The first group of students, a mix of various species under the guidance of human and Zexri instructors, set out to explore the galaxy's most dangerous environments. Their blog, Dancing with Death, Responsibly, became an instant hit. Entries included: how to make friends with local mega predators. Note, results may vary. Top 10 most delicious, possibly toxic plants. Fashion guide. Accessorizing your environmental suit. Dating across species. When your idea of a fun first date involves possible death. The Galactic Council eventually created a new department specifically to handle what they termed Human Zexri Collaborative Insanity. The department's first action was to establish a new hazard classification system that included the category Technically Survivable Human Zexri Standard. And somewhere in the galaxy right now, a human and a Zexri are probably planning their next relaxing vacation to a planet that would kill most species instantly. They'll probably open a coffee shop there. As Sarah likes to say, in the hospitality industry, you haven't really made it until your establishment requires a quantum physicist to calculate the insurance premiums. The resort's latest addition? The resort's latest. A time-dilated bungee jumping experience near a black hole. The waiver for that one is still being written. The galaxy may never be the same, but at least it's never boring. And the gift shop does amazing business. Breaking news across the Galactic Information Network. The holographic announcer's tentacles waved with barely contained excitement. The latest season of Survival Death World Edition has broken all previous viewing records, with an estimated 40% of the galaxy's population tuning in for last night's finale. The show, a joint production between human and Zexri entertainment companies, had become the galaxy's most unlikely cultural phenomenon. The premise was simple. Take contestants from various standard environmental worlds and have them attempt to complete challenges designed by humans and Zexri, all while learning to appreciate the charm of Death World living. Can you believe, Sarah Chen mused, watching the broadcast from her office in the newly constructed Extreme Horizons corporate tower, built to withstand direct asteroid impacts naturally, that just 3 years ago, most species wouldn't even consider visiting a Class 4 world? KRX, now sporting the impressive title of Galactic Minister of Extreme Tourism and Cultural Exchange, clicked his mandibles in amusement. My favorite part was when that floatian contestant discovered they could use their natural buoyancy to surf Earth's hurricane winds. The latest season had featured everything from cooking challenges using volatile Earth ingredients to survival exercises in Zexri gravity. The finale, which involved a scavenger hunt through an active volcanic range while dodging lightning strikes, had kept the galaxy on the edge of their seats. But the show's true impact went far beyond entertainment. Minister KRX! A young Zexri burst into the office, their exoskeletons still smoking slightly from their morning extreme commute through the acid rain. The Galactic Council's Cultural Exchange Committee has just released their annual report. The report, displayed in hovering holographic text, told an extraordinary story. In the 3 years since the establishment of the joint Death World Species Safety First Academy and the subsequent tourism ventures, there had been a 300% increase in cross-species adaptation training programs. More surprisingly, species that had traditionally avoided any form of environmental challenge were now actively seeking out controlled exposure experiences. Look at these numbers, Sarah grinned, scrolling through the data. The Floatians have opened their own gravity adaptation centers. The Crystallines are offering extreme temperature tolerance workshops. Even the Vapori have started a solid-state appreciation society. The cultural shift hadn't stopped there. Fashion trends across the galaxy now incorporated elements of human and Zexri protective gear. Battle-scarred chic, as fashion magazines called it, had become the latest rage. Environmental suits were no longer merely functional, but had become status symbols, with the most prestigious designs featuring authentic scorch marks from Earth lightning or acid etching from Zexri storms. Even cuisine had undergone a revolution. Jennifer Martinez's The Last Resort had spawned a whole new category of dining establishment, the survival restaurant. These establishments offered increasingly adventurous species the chance to sample carefully controlled portions of human and Zexri cuisine, complete with medical teams on standby. Did you see the latest application numbers for next year's academy class? KRX asked, pulling up another holographic display. We've got candidates from 27 species that were previously classified as extremely environmental sensitive. The Academy itself had evolved. What started as a human Zexri exchange program had grown into the galaxy's premier institution for cross-species adaptation training. The curriculum now included everything from introduction to breathing optional environments to advanced interspecies emergency response techniques. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in galactic politics. Another trade delegation requested to hold their negotiations at the Lightning Surfing Resort, Sarah noted, checking her messages. Apparently, they believe that facing possible death by electrocution together will help break their diplomatic deadlock. She wasn't wrong. The phenomenon had become so common that political analysts had coined a term for it: death world diplomacy. The theory was simple. Species that survived extreme conditions together tended to develop a bond that transcended traditional political barriers. The Galactic Council, initially skeptical of the whole movement, had been forced to adapt. They now maintained a permanent diplomatic facility on Earth, complete with what they called graduated exposure chambers, to help representatives acclimate to human conditions. The facility's motto, suggested by a particularly enthusiastic Vapori diplomat: "If we can survive this together, we can negotiate anything." Even warfare had been impacted. The traditional approach to conflict resolution was being replaced by what humans and Zexri called extreme sports competitions. Why fight a war when you could settle disputes with a multi-species team challenge in deadly conditions? "Oh, this is interesting," Carrick said, reviewing another report. "Remember that group of crystallines who went through our thermal shock therapy program? They've just announced the opening of their own volcanic spa resort. They're marketing it as extreme meditation." The influence of human and Zexri culture had created entirely new industries. Death World Insurance had become one of the galaxy's most profitable sectors. Extreme wedding planning was gaining popularity among adventurous couples. There was even a dating service specifically for beings interested in high-risk romance. But the most profound change was in how species viewed their own limitations. "We've got a Vapori applying for a position as a volcanic diving instructor," Sarah announced, holding up a particular application. "They've developed a specialized containment suit that lets them maintain their gaseous form while operating in extreme pressures." Carex clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Remember when most species thought we were insane for living on our homeworlds? Now they're developing new technologies just to experience our kind of fun." The galaxy was changing, one extreme experience at a time. Species that had once feared death world conditions were now seeking them out, safely and under proper supervision, of course. The liability waivers were still extensive, but now they came in more languages. "Next week's pretty busy," Sarah noted, checking their schedule. "We've got the inauguration of the first zero-gravity acid rain dance club, the opening of a new chain of extreme coffee shops called Deadly Brew, and the galaxy's first cross-species extreme sports championship. Don't forget the new reality show," KRX added. "So you think you can survive?" "Starts filming on that nice Class 8 death world we found last month." Somewhere in the galaxy, a being that evolved in perfect environmental conditions is probably right now signing up for their first Introduction to Earth weather course. They're probably terrified and excited in equal measure. And that's exactly how humans and Zexri like it. As the saying goes in the newly established Galactic Extreme Tourism Board, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Just make sure your insurance is up to date. The latest addition to the Extreme Horizons resort chain, a facility specifically designed to help beings face their species' traditional environmental fears. They're calling it Phobia Factor, Death World Edition. The waiting list is already 6 months long. And the gift shop? It's expanding into a mall. Because if there's one thing the galaxy has learned from humans and Zexri, it's that anything can be an adventure if you're brave enough to try it. Just remember to sign the waiver.